Part 31. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 301. Chapter 301. Lu Ziwen recovers his memory. During this period of time, he had not fulfilled Gu Si's wish and refused to admit that he loved her. She really didn't seem to mind. He just wanted to accompany her like a pet, and her mood became milder. Lu Ziwen thought that she could be emotional. Got it under control. Unexpectedly, a nightmare revealed its true form. Is it because his stimulation was too mild, which resulted in Gu Si's condition not being effective? He is not a professional psychiatrist, but he also knows that if Gu Siruo has always had illusions and refuses to accept the facts, he will never get better no matter what. Lu Ziwen pushed her away, as cold as a stranger. Gu Si, are you crazy enough? The way you love someone is to imprison him in a cage? I am not the cat or dog you raised. If you want to kill me, come on. If you kill me, I won't love you. Gu Si didn't know which word triggered her. You want to die? You are dreaming. If you want to die, I will die first. I definitely don't want to. She absolutely did not want to face Lu Ziwen's death alone again. In the last life, she experienced it once, and in this life, she almost experienced it again. Gu Si slapped Lu Ziwen on the face. Never threaten me with death. Lu Ziwen, who received a slap, looked at her in shock. After Gu Si went out, he brought a gun over and put it in Lu Ziwen's hand. Don't you want to die? Come on, kill me first. Lu Ziwen knew as soon as he weighed it that it was indeed loaded with bullets. You. He felt really distressed and had no choice. If he could wake her up, he really wanted to slap her awake. Gu Si's obsession was really too deep. It is like a drug addict who has been addicted for many years and cannot quit. Lu Ziwen is her addiction. He really didn't know whether he was happy or sad. There is a person who loves him as much as life, but it is not him. Gu Si, listen carefully. Lu Ziwen looked at her coldly. I will never love you even if you lock me up. Lu Ziwen, who loves you, will never come back. You are sick, you need to go see a doctor. I'm a doctor. Gu Si tilted her head. I'm sick. I know it. You don't need to tell me, and you don't need to love me. You just stay here. I can see you at any time. Want to leave? Unless you kill me. Lu Ziwen suddenly loaded the gun and turned on the safety. He looked at Gu Si coldly. Gu Si, don't force me. Gu Si suddenly laughed. She was wearing a long skirt and her hair was loose. She really looked like a female ghost asking for her life. Shoot, kill me. I can jump from the globe. Am I afraid of death? One person is calm and the other is crazy, but the two emotions are so entangled that Lu Ziwen was almost driven crazy by her. He has never encountered such a difficult situation. Gu Si is not a hot potato for him, but fragile porcelain. Whether it is heavy or light, he has to consider it, but he really doesn't know what to do. In the Black Hawk group, he has encountered no matter how difficult the situation is. When Zhang Junlin sent people to kill him, he had a narrow escape. He has also experienced it. No matter how bad the situation is, there are always more solutions than difficulties, but who will tell him how to break this game? How can he make Gu Si feel better? Would admitting that he loved her make her feel better? But can she still believe it? Lu Ziwen felt that he had really shot a rock in the foot and was helpless for the first time in his life. Gu Si lowered his head, raised his hand, and pointed the gun between her eyebrows. Third brother, come on, kill me, and you will be free. The gun in his hand was like a hot potato. Gu Si's eyes suddenly turned red and she was about to pull the trigger excitedly. You actually really want to kill me? Pei Chuying killed you, but you spared her life. You actually want to kill me? Come on. Do it, I'll help you. She pulled the trigger like crazy. Lu Ziwen was so frightened that he quickly disassembled it when she pulled the trigger frantically. The bullet fell into his palm. Gu Xi really pulled the trigger and fired a blank shot. Lu Ziwen was furious and slapped Gu Xi hard. This was the first time he hit Gu Xi. She actually pulled the trigger. The muzzle of the gun was pointed at her forehead. The gun was in his hand. If he was not careful, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Are you crazy enough? No, Gu Xi's eyes turned red. I am just a madman. Did you know that on the first day? Lu Ziwen had a splitting headache. He seemed to have seen the scene before, and his memory suddenly resurfaced. That time after Gu Xi jumped off the building, he sought death for the second time. He seemed to have beaten her, and Gu Xi looked at him with red eyes like this. She said, I don't want to live anymore. Lu Ziwen covered his forehead and groaned in pain. Gu Xi was surprised and felt that he was touching porcelain. Stop pretending, I won't be fooled. But Lu Ziwen's whole body was convulsing, and it didn't look like he was faking it. The gun and bullets fell to the ground. Gu Xi hurriedly asked, what's wrong with you? Headache, Lu Ziwen frowned, and the overwhelming images seemed to forcefully squeeze into his mind. He saw the sunshine, at the gate of the suburban prison, and he drove to pick up Gu Xi. Gu Xi was dressed in whitewashed clothes and covered her face to dodge. He drove over and wanted to take her home, but Gu Xi didn't want to. He followed her in the car. He said to Gu Xi, get in the car and I'll take you home. He took Gu Xi to a villa in the suburbs. Someone came to assassinate her that day. When Gu Xi heard the gunfire, she was frightened at first. She subconsciously squatted in the corner with her head in her hands, not daring to move. That is a common action of prisoners who have been in prison and are often in prisons for serious criminals. Because there are many death row inmates in suburban prisons, they are violent and sadistic, and they don't mind one more life, so there are a lot of riots. When maintaining law and order, gunshots are often heard. Once gunshots are heard, all prisoners must squat down with their heads in their hands, otherwise they will become a target. After she squatted down with her head in her hands, Lu Ziwen scolded Li Zhang angrily and hurried to deal with the so as not to scare Gu Xi. But the assassination team that day was very powerful. They killed someone in front of them, and one person lay dead in front of Gu Xi. If an ordinary girl saw this, she would be frightened and run away screaming, but Gu Xi was like a wooden figure with blood splattered on her face. She remained motionless and indifferent to human life. Li Zhang was shocked when he saw Gu Xi's face. The scars on her face were very deep and ugly. Gu Xi covered her face and looked away. Lu Ziwen was furious and kicked Li Zhang. Li Zhang had known for a long time that Gu Xi was injured, but this was the first time he saw the scar. He was inevitably surprised and apologized hastily, but Gu Xi didn't seem to hear it. After she came back from prison, she didn't say a word for 3 days. She didn't like to eat anything she liked in the past. She had a habit of eating without leaving any grain. She never opened the curtains in the room. She liked to hide alone in the corner of the bedroom, watching the slightest disturbance. Just like a frightened bird, it is so fragile that it makes people feel distressed. Lu Ziwen didn't force her, and she didn't need to worry about anything. He tried to appear in front of her as little as possible, but he stayed at home and stayed with her. The first time Gu Xi went out was to go to the mall with him to buy autumn clothes. She was wearing a hat and a mask, and she was wrapped tightly. But when Lu Ziwen went to check out, Gu Chuiyun sent someone to bump into Gu Xi and take off her hat and mask. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 302. Chapter 302. The third young master is back. Gu Xi's disfigured face was exposed to the public. The child was so frightened that she screamed. Others hid in fear. Some people were spreading rumors that she was a murderer. Gu Si looked blankly at the screaming and crying child, and covered her face without realizing it. Standing at a loss in the crowd, she covered her injured face without realizing it. Others pointed, cursed, and even called security to tell the murderer to get out of the mall. Lu Ziwen hurried over, protected Gu Si, and protected her from leaving. He is a global star and attracts everyone's attention. This incident quickly became a hot topic. Fans of Lu Ziwen attacked Gu Si and felt that Gu Si was not worthy of Lu Ziwen. A bunch of dirty words were directed at Gu Si. Lu Ziwen was furious and announced his retirement and issued a marriage declaration. Gu Si was his wife. But at that time, Gu Si was not willing to say another word to him. That night, he didn't sleep well. The psychiatrist said that Gu Si was in prison, suffered inhuman torture, and had a weak will to survive. He never dared to sleep deeply. He woke up inexplicably that night, always feeling that something was going to happen, in the bedroom. Lu Ziwen panicked when he didn't see Gu Si inside. He looked for Gu Si everywhere, only to find Gu Si standing on the fourth floor of the villa. He fell straight down head first. Lu Ziwen used his superpower to catch Gu Si. Gu Si took the medicine that day and was already a little dazed, so she didn't notice anything unusual about him. Gu Si has lost hope in this world and has no will to live. After being released from prison, she is like a walking zombie. She doesn't even think about revenge. Gu Chaoyun and Lu Shijia framed her and sent her to prison, but she didn't even mention it after she was released from prison. She has been a person who has always wanted revenge since she was a child. If Gu Chaoyun slaps her, she will slap her back twice. She no longer thinks about revenge, which shows that the hope that supported her survival has long been extinguished. He was distressed, angry, and at a loss. He asked Gu Si, "Don't you want to take revenge?" Gu Si asked with dull eyes, "I have taken revenge. Can I go back to the past? If not, what is the use of revenge?" Lu Ziwen's eyes turned red. She lost everything and hope, and there was not even a single person in the world that she loved. Gu Si committed suicide 3 times, but was stopped by Lu Ziwen each time. He took Gu Si to see a doctor, hoping to cure her hand injury. The hand bone was a comminuted fracture. Although it was repaired, she could not exert herself or lift heavy objects, nor could she lift heavy objects. If you can't do more delicate work, it's basically useless. 5 years in prison have left him with injuries, heart ailments, and injuries. Even though he has been a racing driver for so many years, he has not suffered as many injuries as Gu Si during his several years in prison. Gu Si, if you can't find the motivation to live, then lie for me. Lu Ziwen kissed her scar. "I live for you, and you live for me, okay?" Gu Si looked at him in confusion. "Why should I live for you?" "I want to marry you," Lu Ziwen said, "so, please lie for me." Lu Ziwen fainted due to pain, and his memories stopped abruptly. Gu Si shook his shoulders and shouted in panic, "Lu Ziwen, wake up, Lu Ziwen." Gu Si took a breath and found that his breathing rate was normal. Gu Si frowned and hurriedly found the medical kit. Lu Ziwen's condition has stabilized, but he is still awake. Gu Si has some commonly used medical equipment at home. She has checked Lu Ziwen in detail and there is nothing abnormal. Why does he not wake up? Gu Si takes a minute to check his breathing and touch it. "My pulse feels like I fell asleep, why can't I wake up? What is wrong with his body?" But the instrument shows that he is healthy. If he is sent to the hospital, will anything be found out? "Third brother, don't scare me." Gu Si thought that if he couldn't wake up tonight, she would send him to the hospital, so Gu Si didn't dare to blink her eyes. She would feel her pulse in 1 minute and her nose in 2 minutes. His temperature was taken from time to time, and his pulse and breathing did not look like a sudden illness at all. Gu Si was so anxious that she kept watch until dawn. It was daybreak and Lu Ziwen hadn't woken up yet. Gu Si was in a panic and was about to untie him and send him to the hospital for examination. Unexpectedly, Lu Ziwen slowly opened his eyes. Gu Si regained her composure in a second, took 3 steps back, and looked at him condescendingly, still with the attitude of a condescending prisoner. Xiao Si, as soon as he called her name, he felt a severe headache again, and he remembered the memory that appeared in his mind before he fell into coma. Was that the memory of the previous life? But wasn't he in a car accident and almost died? Lu Ziwen raised his hand to rub his eyebrows, but suddenly found himself chained and was stunned. Gu Si, what do you mean? He was actually tied up? Gu Si also looked at him in confusion. You, who are you? I am Lu Ziwen, who else could it be? Could it be that there was a car accident and I survived the catastrophe, but I still used the corpse to bring back the soul? Lu Ziwen touched his face and was shocked. Could it be that the corpse really brought back the soul? This is not my face. Why are you here? You want to lock me up? Can you explain? Gu Si took a few steps back, becoming more and more confused. Is it the third brother? No, he acted. When he played the third brother, he also pretended to be real. He was just trying to get out of trouble. No matter how similar you act, I will never be fooled. What a mess, Gu Si, untie it for me. Lu Ziwen frowned, noticing that she was not only thinner, but also a little abnormal. Are you crazy? Gu Si sneered, no matter how good you act, you still have to stay here honestly. She turned away grimly. Gu Si, stop, damn. Lu Ziwen wanted to get up and chase him, but found that his feet were also locked and the door of the dark room had been closed. Under this stimulation, there was another burst of severe pain. After the car accident, memories of these days gradually flooded into my mind, how the third master played him, and how Gu Si was driven crazy. Including last night, the memories that come to mind. Lu Ziwen was suddenly stunned, and had a very strange feeling. He and the third master's memories had always been independent of each other, and he was not interested in the third master's affairs at all. Why, everything seemed to be experienced by himself. He seemed to have woken up from a dream. Lu Ziwen frowned and his face was slightly cold. What's going on? Another memory suddenly came to his mind. The overwhelming memory rolled in like a flood and drowned him. He restored all the memories of his past and present lives? Gu Si leaned against the door in a panic. Why did his eyes look so like the third brother? No, to be precise, it was like the Lu Ziwen she was most familiar with in her previous life. No. It must be a lie. He wants to escape from here and is acting on purpose. You can't believe him. Paris, in the safe house. Ji Sun woke up from the pain after the anesthesia. He was not awake during the operation. Zhang Junlin was unconscious when he came back carrying him on his back. After the anesthesia, his arms hurt so much that his nerves ached, as if someone was constantly cutting open his head. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 303. Chapter 303, The Little Wolf Dog Suffered a Misfortune. Ji Huan broke out in a cold sweat from the pain. Zhang Junlin watched indifferently. When Ji Huan saw that his arm had been bandaged again, if he hadn't been conscious, he suspected that Zhang Junlin had chopped off his hand. Brother, medicine. Zhang Junlin crossed his legs and said in a casual manner, bear it. He knew that Ji Sun woke up from the pain. With the quack doctor's method, Ji Sun was the ghost only if it didn't hurt. A large piece of good flesh and blood was cut off. Ji-sun shouted aggrievedly, "Brother, it really hurts. Give me a nap, take some painkillers." "No, he really didn't come back with painkillers. I took you to see a doctor and didn't let your hand be amputated. I've done my best and I've done my best. Do you still want me to serve you with tea and water?" Ji-sun had no choice but to endure it. The pain was not unbearable, but he could take painkillers. Why suffer like this? Although Ji-sun was in pain, he felt much better. "Brother, you took me out to see a doctor. You're overthinking it, I did it." Ji-sun was a little surprised. "You know how to treat this kind of wound." He doesn't believe it. Jang Junlin was too lazy to talk to him. Both of them were recovering from their injuries and couldn't get out. During the time Ji-sun was unconscious, he had been on guard and didn't want to talk to Ji-sun at all. Ji-hoon struggled to get up and poured a cup of hot water. He asked Jang Junlin in a soft tone, "Brother, do you want to drink water? I will serve you tea and water." When it comes to acting coquettishly in front of Jang Junlin, no one can compare with Ji-sun. It's natural, without any artificiality. "Don't make any noise," Jang Junlin frowned coldly, "don't bother. When we get out of this door, we will face the sky and go to each side." "Impossible," Ji-sun quickly rejected it. "Do you believe it or not, I will take off your arm right now. You kill me, and I say the same thing." The idea of the road pointing toward the sky and everyone going one way does not exist in his dictionary. There was a network in the safe house, but they were afraid that others would find it, so they used the equipment in the original safe house, so no one contacted the outside world for fear of being exposed, especially Jang Junlin. Ji-sun looked at him pitifully, "Brother, does your injury hurt?" Jang Junlin ignored him and ignored whatever he said. However, Ji-sun was not discouraged at all. He was in so much pain that he couldn't sleep. He simply moved closer to Jang Junlin. He saw anti-inflammatory drugs and various antibiotics on the side. Knowing that Jang Junlin took him out to find a doctor, he felt even happier. "Brother is really hard-spoken and soft-hearted." Ji-sun said a few more words, but Jang Junlin ignored him. Ji-sun had a flash of idea. "Why did you call Gu Si on the way? Is the Dark Master of the Ji-dao now Gu Si? This is an internal matter within our Udao and has nothing to do with you. Brother, you are so scheming. After your accident, the Dark Master of the Ji-dao became Gu Si, and Black Eagle is our third master. Are you sure that the third master will be soft-hearted?" Jang Junlin frowned and narrowed his eyes. "Ji-sun, in your eyes, am I someone who even takes advantage of my own sister?" Ji-sun's smile faded a little when he saw N-Lin touching him. "Isn't it?" Ji Xian said, "otherwise, you would be locked up by me. How could Gu Si know about the Jidao intranet? You must have planned it a long time ago. Let me guess, when, on New Year's Day, Gu Si will go to find you. After the third master had a car accident, you knew his identity, so you kept a secret. If something happened to you and Gu Si took over for you, the third master would definitely be merciful to Gu Si. The dark web can still stand, isn't this what you are doing?" Jang Junlin chuckled and said, "I was holding back, but if you hadn't eaten the courage of a bear's heart and a leopard's guts, these things would never have happened, and she wouldn't have become the Dark Master of the Yakuza. Regardless of whether Black Eagle is Lu Ziwen or not. I will leave all my affairs to Gu Si in charge, and I only trust her, understand? This has nothing to do with the fact that the leader of the Black Eagle sect is Lu Ziwen. Simply because he believed that Gu Si could handle the Jidao Dark Network well. If something happened to him, at least one person would be there to support him. When the country was perfect, he would find a successor so that he would not fall into chaos. But in the eyes of others, he should be a person who can even take advantage of his own sister, and do whatever he can. It doesn't matter, he doesn't mind the looks of others either." Ji Xian felt as if he had been bitten by a snake. Do you only believe in Gu Si? In this world, the only person he could trust was Gu Si. Ji Xian wanted to laugh, but couldn't. Zhang Junlin knew what Ji Sun was thinking, but he didn't intend to coddle Ji Sun. Ji Huan sat there gloomily. Zhang Junlin thought to himself that maybe he was planning another imprisonment, but there would be no next time. He would never be imprisoned by Ji Huan again. Once bitten, twice shy. There was an invisible rift between him and Ji Sun. Even in times of crisis, he will subconsciously protect Ji Sun's safety. Even if Ji Sun is willing to block bullets when fleeing, the relationship between him and Ji Sun is still irreversible. Brother, if you had taken me away back then, would I be the person you trust the most now? Ji Sun supported his chin and asked with a playful smile, you will train me with the same care as you trained Pei Chuiying, and I will be your right-hand man. I will replace Gu Si and become your most trusted person, right? Zhang Junlin was startled and said calmly, don't look back on the past, just forget it. You speak so lightly. He lifted up his shirt and showed Zhang Junlin the scar on his lower back. It was a mark that looked like it had been burned by fire. It was pitted and suddenly appeared on the young man's slender waist. After the reunion, you have seen my scar a long time ago, but you have never asked. Why didn't you ask? Zhang Junlin had a cold face and remained silent. Speak, Ji Sun lowered his voice. That's your privacy, I don't want to know. Ji Sun chuckled, a little crazy, but gentle at the same time, no matter what the situation, you will not touch my lower back. What's wrong? Is there anything scary here? Chang Junlin. Zhang Junlin didn't want to accept these words at all. Ji Sun seemed to be trapped in some kind of memories that he couldn't get rid of. His eyes were cold. Ji Sun said, actually, you have always known it, right? Ji Sun. Zhang Junlin's tone softened a bit, it has already passed, and that place has long been razed to the ground. I can't make it, Ji Xian glared at him, do you know where this injury came from? I burned it myself. I want to burn all the marks. I scratched it with a knife. It doesn't count. I still have to burn it. Even if I can't see it, there are no traces of it, and I know what I've been through. Zhang Junlin clenched his hands into fists. Ji Sun said, the Dark Master of the Ji Dao has great abilities. He should have known what happened a long time ago. I almost forgot that the place was destroyed by the Chinese army. Was it you who provided the intelligence and planned the action? Zhang Junlin was silent for a moment. Yes, you have always had concerns about this matter. I told you that the reason why I didn't go back to find you was because I was plotted by Lu Ziwen and was seriously injured, but you didn't believe me. Your credit with me has been ruined a long time ago. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 304. Chapter 304 We have no future. Then what do you think? Zhang Junlin didn't bother to explain, Ji Sun, I don't keep my promise because I can't help you. After we meet again, I can make it up to you. Ha 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 ha. Ji Xian laughed like crazy, lying on my bed is considered compensation? Brother, aren't you happy? Zhang Junlin really regretted it. He should have asked the veterinarian to pull out his teeth and leave him unable to speak for 3 days. I broke my promise, and you also locked me up for more than a month. Our grudges are equal to each other. After we get out, we will owe nothing to each other, Zhang Junlin said coldly. He really didn't want to be involved in the whirlpool with Ji Huan and get stuck in the mud. His status does not allow Ji Sun to stand beside him. The Zhang family does not agree, and the superiors will not agree either. Unless he really quits. But apart from death, he couldn't live without the dark network, which was a dead end. In any case, Ji Xian just didn't understand. From the beginning, he knew that those short-term comforts were a dream. Ji Sun's uninjured hand grabbed Zhang Junlin's collar, pressed his forehead against him, and said in a vicious voice, "You're dreaming." Outside the door, there was sudden movement. Zhang Junlin and Ji Xian were startled, and Ji Xian also let go of Zhang Junlin. This safe house is located in an apartment. It is a duplex apartment on the top floor, with 2 stairs and 2 households. There is another family next door. It is a single woman with a family. A son and a daughter. The woman had a estranged husband who often came to her asking for money. When he was annoyed by the harassment, the woman would give him money. This time a fight broke out for some unknown reason. The husband dragged his wife out and beat her violently. The daughter was crying indoors, and the stairwell was filled with men's curses and women's screams. Ji Sun and Zhang Junlin heard about it. It seemed that the husband went to test the child's DNA and found that the youngest daughter was not his biological child. There was already a conflict in the family, and the conflict became even more intensified. The ex-husband yelled, "I'm going to kill you," after being beaten violently. Ji Xian and Zhang Junlin opened the door a little and saw that their wife had been beaten with a bruised nose and a swollen face. The little girl was holding a teddy bear and standing at the door crying loudly. The older brother looked at the scene indifferently, as if he had already been beaten. "Just get used to it. Ji Sun and Zhang Junlin have special identities and cannot be exposed. They should not meddle in other people's business," but the woman was beaten so hard that there were several blood stains on her face. The man held a baseball bat and kept hitting her back, as if to break her back. The woman covered her head and hid in embarrassment. Zhang Junlin suddenly opened the door, held his wrist, and took away his baseball bat. "Hit me again and call the police. Go back to your room and stop meddling in other people's business." The man is a bald man of 1.9 meters, and his body size is comparable to that of 2 Zhang Junlins. He doesn't take Zhang Junlin seriously and will take him back if he gets close to him. Zhang Junlin twisted the baseball bat with his backhand, and the man's hand was almost broken by him. The man was furious, and Zhang Junlin kicked him. The kick was not light, and the man fell directly into the corridor. Zhang Junlin said coldly, "Roll." When the man saw this, he glared at Zhang Junlin fiercely and took a sip. The younger daughter still had some oriental blood. The man pointed at Zhang Junlin and asked his wife, "Is this your adulterer? He still lives next door to you. You two have hooked up a long time ago. Are they together? Is she his daughter?" Ji Sun was injured and couldn't do anything and was leaning against the door to watch the show. He was extremely upset when he heard this. Even if the man was slanderous, he was still upset. He didn't like Zhang Junlin getting involved with anyone. "No. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't even know him," the woman explained. Her nose was still bleeding. Her husband tried to beat him again, but Zhang Junlin put the baseball bat in front of him. "I say it again, get out." It disturbed him and Ji Sun. The man was a little minded. After all, Ji Xian stood behind him like a door god, his eyes as cold as a poisonous snake. A good man would not suffer the loss in front of him, so the man said harsh words and left. Zhang Junlin returned the baseball bat to the woman, and the woman thanked him. The little girl stopped crying. Zhang Junlin said, "Go and see the injury." She looked seriously injured. Zhang Junlin went back to the house and closed the door. Ji Sun looked at him with a half smile but not a smile. Zhang Junlin asked, "Why are you laughing? It's really pity for the beauty. Even at the risk of being exposed, a hero must save the beauty," Ji Xian said sourly, who said a few days ago that he would not go out unless necessary. Even if someone died in front of him, he would not expose himself. Such a slap in the face so quickly. "If you don't care anymore, she will be beaten to death." "Who said that? If someone dies in front of you, you don't have to worry about it." Ji Sun chuckled and said, "Brother, you are duplicitous. Are you not afraid of being exposed when you are causing trouble like this?" Zhang Junlin and Ji Xian stayed here for a few days, recuperating and being vigilant. They knew exactly what was happening on the other side. They were just an ordinary single woman with a couple of children. The woman opened a restaurant. She left early and came back late. Basically, it was the elder brother who took his younger sister to live together. They saw his older brother taking his younger sister to buy groceries and drink several times. Her husband and she are separated and have not yet divorced. Every time the husband comes to ask for money, the woman will swallow her anger for the sake of the children. They are ordinary citizens and do not need to be a military force. The two closed the door. After Zhang Junlin was violent, the wound was slightly cracked, but it was not serious. Ji Sun's hand needed dressing. He coquettishly called Zhang Junlin over. "Brother, help me change the dressing." Zhang Junlin glanced at him. He really couldn't change the dressing by himself, and the wound did need to be changed and checked every day. He came over and untied his gauze. Ji Xian sat on the bed and looked up at Zhang Junlin. He enjoys such an atmosphere. In the whole world, they are the only ones. Escaped together and depended on each other for life, which satisfied the most obscure extravagant wish in his heart. He is within reach, even if he says harsh words once, it is not important at all to him. Zhang Junlin disinfected him, gave him medicine, applied a sterile compress, and gave him an anti-inflammatory shot. His arm looked scary, with such an injury. Where did he have the strength to hold him out of the darkroom that day? Where did you get the strength to shoot? This man doesn't care about his life and doesn't even value himself. Zhang Junlin inexplicably felt a sense of depression in his heart, but Ji Sun smiled at him heartlessly, as if the days of imprisonment and abuse had never existed. Humans and animals were harmless, and people couldn't be more defensive. Ji Sun, you know we have no future, right? Zhang Junlin asked Ji Sun at the beginning. "You know we have no future," Ji Sun said. "Who cares? Those who want to have a moment of revelry, what kind of future do they want?" After all, Zhang Junlin couldn't bear it, and agreed to this agreement that they both knew well. He always remained rational and refused to cross the thunder pool. He knew that it was an abyss, and he would die without a burial place. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 305. Chapter 305. Brother, let's have hot pot together during the Chinese New Year. However, Ji Sun wanted to drag him into the abyss, but he refused, and Ji Sun went crazy. Ji Sun has been forcing him to make a decision, but it was clearly agreed from the beginning that neither of us wants a future, so why do you insist on me giving you a promise? Brother, what do you want to say? It's nothing, it's just an injury. Zhang Junlin sat indifferently in front of the window. The curtains were always closed. He listened to the sound of wind and snow outside, and felt very uncomfortable. He has been a very rational person since he was a child. Zhang Junlin's great-grandfather was very lucky and died a good death at the age of 76. Although he died fighting for the country, he was loyal throughout his life, from beginning to end. In the year when his great-grandfather died, Zhang Junlin was just born. The story of his great-grandfather is when Zhang Junlin was 7 years old. I accidentally heard it at the door of the study. An important person came to the house that day. They were talking about things in the study. They hope that Mr. Zhang can be the master of the G-Dao dark network, because the foundation laid by their ancestors is too deep. They tried to send someone to take over, but the effect was not good. There are many forces in the G-Dao dark network, but they only recognize the Chang family. However, when Mr. Zhang passed away, he fought for the rights of his son and grandson not to serve on the G-Dao Darnet. When the superiors sent people to manage the G-Dao Darnet, they found it difficult to control them and could not give up. This was a lifelong effort of Mr. Zhang, and it was not easy. Established financial channels. Zhang Junlin came back from school. His home was quiet. His tutoring was always very strict. The scholarly family paid the most attention to rules. No matter how young he was, he would not run, jump or shout at home, so no one heard his footsteps. When he passed by the study, I heard my grandfather's rare scolding voice, which seemed to be cursing. Driven by curiosity, I listened in the corner for a while. From that time on, he knew about the existence of the Jideo dark web. When he was a teenager, the Jideo dark network went through a rebellion, and the minister approached the Zhang family, still hoping that the old man and Zhang Minghua could become the masters of the Jideo dark network, so it was natural for him to take over the important task. In the first year after taking over the heavy responsibility, I understood what the Yakuza Darnet does, what he will do in the future, and why my great-grandfather fought for the right for his children and grandchildren not to join the Yakuza. At the same time, he also understood that since a man has been promised a kingdom, it is difficult to marry a minister. Even if he marries a wife and has children normally, his life will not be peaceful. He must be focused and unfettered, so that he will not be like the dilemma faced by his grandfather and father. Or maybe, his marriage will be a transaction, and his wife and children will one day face a disaster. No one can predict the future. What he can do is to take every step carefully and not to be stained by the world of mortals. He is also used to restraining his desires. He once liked the violin very much. The Zhang family has been a scholarly family for generations, and the children they raised were very literary. He was brought up by his aunt. When he was a child, he saw his aunt wearing a long skirt and standing in the living room playing the violin. He yearned for it. He practiced his skills hard and won the championship in the children's violin competition. He once had a dream of becoming a musician. Later, he cut the strings, sealed the box completely, and never mentioned it again. Very few people knew that the eldest son of the Zhang family was once a talented musician. The hand that played the violin was pure white, but in the end it was stained with blood. He must clearly know what he can and cannot do. Ji Sun, this is his first and last indulgence after taking over the Jideo dark network. He knows that he cannot do anything, but insists on going his own way. It is a kind of tragedy. Brother, what are you thinking about? Ji Sun's words interrupted Zhang Junlin's thoughts. Zhang Junlin glanced at him indifferently, avoiding his intense gaze. The doorbell rang, Zhang Junlin's nerves became tense, and Ji Sun was also on full alert, touching the gun at hand. The two looked at each other. The bell sounded like an alarm bell. It rang for the first time after they entered the safe house. Zhang Junlin and Ji Xian went to see the surveillance camera at the same time. The little girl next door was standing at the door holding a tray. She has long chestnut hair with 2 braids. She looks like she is only 5 or 6 years old. She has exquisite facial features and fair skin. She looks like a Chinese-French mixed race. She is very beautiful. Zhang Junlin approached the door and opened it. The little girl was holding a small cake and said in a childish voice, "Brother, this is a small cake made by mother." "Thank you." The small cake was made very beautifully. The woman ran the restaurant and her craftsmanship was very good. The cream cake was rich and fragrant. Zhang Junlin bent down and took the cake. "Thank you." The little girl ran home shyly. Neither Ji Sun nor Zhang Junlin wanted to have any interactions with their neighbors, but their conditions were limited in recent days and their food was indeed rough. Zhang Junlin and Ji Sun looked at the cakes. They were not necessarily greedy for cakes and desserts, but they just felt that they were too much. After a few rough days, this cake appeared in front of them like a delicacy. "It's the new year," Zhang Junlin looked at the cake and said suddenly. This was the first time he was not at home to celebrate the new year. Grandpa and father must be very worried. Ji Sun actually felt a little guilty. If he had not imprisoned Zhang Junlin, this series of tragedies and chaos would indeed not have happened. But he felt a little bit happy again. This was his first time celebrating the new year with Zhang Junlin. "Brother, let's have hot pot together on New Year's Eve. Zhang Junlin glanced at him and did not answer. The light in Ji Xian's eyes gradually extinguished in the darkness. The new year is a reunion, so what kind of reunion is he and Zhang Junlin? In City A, Gu Ziyou finally finished his exams and officially went on vacation. Chen Liangdong threw him a bunch of cases and wished he could come to work every day. Old man, you are not 996 anymore. You want to exploit and abuse me 24 hours a day, children, do you know? I dreamed that I would grow to 1.9 meters when I was 18 years old. If I am not so tall in this life, it must be your fault. Chen Liangdong felt that his words were very ill, but he said with a smile, recently, the Black Hawk and the Ji-Dao have been fighting internally. We have been reaping the benefits, and there have been more things. The information officers in our department need your training. You are here for the exam. They've been complaining for 2 weeks, and they still need you to take charge. Gu Ziyou secretly thought that when parents fight, the children always suffer, but in his case, the children win instead. It's really outrageous. Chen Liangdong said, the intelligence agency in Paris recently took a photo, take a look. Gu Ziyou took the photo and took a look. It was Dr. North. She was wearing a red coat, tightly tied around her waist, her long hair was tied up, she was wearing an English hat, and she was holding a short gun, as if she was on a mission. Chen Liangdong said, if I remember correctly, this is a professor from University A. I met her once in the hospital. From the medical school. Gu Ziyou said that it was not surprising that this photo was taken. Recently, Chen Liangdong used overseas intelligence networks to search for the whereabouts of Zhang Junlin. He did not let go of any clues and helped the local police quickly solve several cases. Case. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 306. Chapter 306. Dad, are you crazy too? Gu Ci has finished her exam and should be fine recently. Please help me invite her out for tea. I want to ask her about Dr. North. I ask someone to check her background. She and Gu Ci, it's quite close. Gu Ziyou had an idea. He was afraid that his mother would not leave Lanshan Villa in the near future. Old man, let's do this. I'm going to Lanshan Villa. You can go back with me. She has been in poor health recently and is raising her at home. She is very homely. What is a young 18-year-old girl going to do if she doesn't travel or play after taking exams and stays at home all day? Just, playing with pets. Gu Ziyou raised his eyebrows. Okay, I'll go with you. Gu Ziyou greeted Gu Ci in advance. When they arrived, Gu Ci changed into bright clothes and specially put on makeup. She looked better. She had a beautiful small garden, which Chen Liangdong also liked very much. The weather was not too cold in the afternoon, so Gu Ci entertained Chen Liangdong in the small garden to avoid any accidents. Lu Ziwen has been very quiet recently. He no longer shouts about whether he is the third master or the third young master. He always looks at her calmly. That look in his eyes makes Gu Ci always want to escape. Gu Ci met the darkroom downstairs, and then realized that after going to the second door, Gu Ci changed the password. It was not the one he was familiar with. Gu Ziyou went to the garden, leaned on the railing and acted coquettishly, Mom, password. Gu Ci pursed her lips and refused to speak. Gu Ziyou blinked pitifully, Mom. Your birthday. Gu Ziyou ran away happily, and Chen Liangdong didn't take it to heart. Gu Ci's tea-making skills were top-notch, and Chen Liangdong especially liked drinking her tea. I came to you today to ask about Dr. North. I heard that you being very close to her, do you know anything about her? Chen Liangdong put a photo in front of her, and Gu Ci knew what was going on at a glance. It was a conflict with Black Eagle 3 days ago. They met on a narrow road, had a close encounter, and was accidentally exposed. Dr. North rarely talks about her privacy. I know that she has been raised by Chen Geng, and it was Chen Geng who supported her. In school, there is no other communication except teaching. She appreciates my talent. She wanted to accept me as a close disciple. I also admired her medical skills, so I became her teacher. My course progress was faster than that of my classmates. There were some difficult contents, so I would ask her for advice, so I kept going back and forth. Very familiar. Doctors are the trinity of medicine, education, and research. You can learn a lot from her. She is very comprehensive, not only in cardiology, surgery, orthopedics, and psychology. Gu Ci has already organized the language, and her words are true and false. Mixed. Your grandma was seriously ill at the time, and you begged me to go to jail to get her. During this period, I checked the files and found a lot of doubts. Her identity is almost a secret. How did you know? Chen Liangdong drank tea slowly. Gu Ci knew that Chen Liangdong was scheming and suspected of falling in love with her. She really couldn't explain this matter clearly. Gu Ci said, I have always admired her, so I found a lot of information about her. I saw her outside the court, and later I quietly investigated and found out that she was in a suburban prison. That's a coincidence. Chen Liangdong put down the teacup. Gu Ci refilled his hot tea and said with a chuckle, yes, it's a coincidence. It's fate. But I really don't know about other things. Uncle Chen, did my master commit a crime? Strictly speaking, it's not under our control. Chen Liangdong chuckled and said, I'm curious about her identity. There was a melee between the Udao and the Black Eagle that night. Which side did she belong to? I don't know about that. Gu Ci has always been calm. We usually don't talk about anything else besides schoolwork. Downstairs, Gu Ziyu opened the door and put his mobile phone in his trouser pocket. Lu Ziwen leaned on the bed and closed his eyes to rest. He opened his eyes after hearing footsteps and was startled when he saw it was Gu Ziyu. It was the first time Lu Ziwen met Gu Ziyu after he recovered all his memories. Only the three rarely saw Gu Zijia in this life. Although he felt dear, he felt annoying. He didn't like any man who occupied Gu Porcelain's mind, even a little boy. When the third master, who had no emotional fluctuations, met Gu Ziyu, his emotions that had been imprisoned for many years made it difficult for him to feel the true love between father and son in the world. But after the two souls merged into one, Lu Ziwen saw Gu Ziyu again and felt it was magical. He sighed at the magic of the creator of nature. He was orphaned, without a wife and children, but he was actually connected by blood. Son. After walking in the human world for hundreds of years, I am used to seeing life and death, and I also look down upon the various behaviors of all living beings. It is difficult for my soul that has lost all love to feel the kindness and tenderness of others. Since we cannot perceive, we cannot give. Unexpectedly, his souls would one day become one. Gu Ziyu didn't notice his silence and started talking like a machine gun. Treatment is a slow process. You can't give strong medicine. Mom will go crazy even more if you stimulate her further. You have to be gentler. Can't irritate her anymore. Baby, come here, Lu Ziwen interrupted Gu Ziyu. Gu Ziyu rubbed the goosebumps on his body. Who did you call baby? How disgusting. Lu Ziwen never called him baby. You are my son, of course you are my baby. Lu Ziwen chuckled, with a touch of tenderness in his eyes. Gu Ziyu suspected that he had been fooled by Gu Sigwan. Dad, there is something wrong with you. Are you trying to save the country by going through all kinds of twists and turns, trying to use sugar-coated bullets to paralyze me and make me let you go? I will not betray my mother. Lu Ziwen laughed. Watch less TV series. Gu Ziyu has walked in front of Lu Ziwen. He hugged Guzio and held him in his arms. Guzio could feel Lu Ziwen's joy, and he was confused. It was not the first day that his father knew that he was his son, and his attitude was cold, as if he didn't like him at all. Why did his attitude change 180 degrees? Is his father's love delayed a bit? "Dad, are you okay?" Guzio couldn't help but said, "My mother is crazy, don't go crazy too." Lu Ziwen's eyes were slightly red, and he gritted his teeth, but remained silent. His son had grown so big, just as he had expected, he would look like Gu Si. They all say that the son is like his mother, and it is indeed true. Lu Ziwen suppressed the emotions welling up in his heart and held his face with both hands. The child's delicate skin was warm against his, and in his calloused hands, he felt like he was holding precious porcelain. Guzio's heart was ringing with alarms, something was wrong. "You're back," Guzio thought of a possibility, but something wasn't right. One of his two fathers was as cold as ice and didn't seem to acknowledge his existence, while the other wouldn't be so insensitive even if he knew he was his son. This matter is a bit complicated. Lu Ziwen never expected that his son would also be brought back. It was a buy one get one free deal. "I didn't ask you to go back to Jiang's house for a while, so why are you here?" End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 307. Chapter 307. I have never had a dual personality. I'm afraid you will be tortured to death by your mother. She won't. When Lu Ziwen mentioned Gu Si, his tone became a little softer. He didn't have the restraint of the third master, nor the overbearing and unruly third master. It seemed to be softened by a kind of gentleness, and he had a stronger power. Guzio snorted coldly, "Dad, to be honest, I can see the surveillance in the dark room." When Lu Ziwen thought of the conflict between him and Gu Si a few days ago, he pointed a gun at Gu Si's head. Gu Si almost shot, and they slapped each other. He was suddenly silent. Domestic violence scenes are not suitable for children to watch. You should control yourself rationally next time, Lu Ziwen gave him sincere advice. "There's something really wrong with you." Guzio was confused. "You don't look like the third young master or the third master. Who are you?" "People have many sides. A heinous murderer may also be a gentle old father. He may look honest, but he may be a thief secretly. Even the great public prosecutors and law enforcement officers have selfish motives. Even in the National Security Bureau, he is also a cold-faced little devil." "Aren't you acting coquettish and cute in front of Ziasai?" Lu Ziwen asked. "So, why is it strange that I have many sides?" Guzio took a step back. "You admitted that you have a dual personality. Total denial now? Does your words just not count?" "I have never had a dual personality." "Dad, you have been locked up by your mother for a few days. Is there something wrong with you?" Guzio seriously suspected that he had an evil spirit. "Don't tell me, there is another personality in Dad's body, and it's you. Then he will go crazy." Lu Ziwen's face was cold and coercive. "Guzio, what are you talking about?" At that moment, Guzio could clearly feel that this was the third master. Lu Ziwen suddenly smiled. "What? Are you scared?" Guzio. Guzio understood. "So, you can switch freely." Lu Ziwen rubbed his eyebrows. "I kind of doubt your IQ. I am a doctor, and you don't have one." Guzio refused to accept the insult. "Even if you are my dad, you can't insult me. Your mother and I have a relationship that is constantly being resolved and messed up. I can't tell you clearly for the time being, Ziu. No matter what happens in the future, whether I am with you or not, you must protect your mother," Lu Ziwen said calmly. He said in a loud voice, "I know you lived to be 18 in your last life. You are an adult and you have responsibilities. Remember what Dad said, do you understand?" Guzio's eyes widened suddenly. He had never mentioned how old he lived to anyone, Not even his mother. How did his father know? You. Gu Zio was flustered for a while, and then he realized that Lu Ziwen seemed to be handing over the funeral arrangements. He was a little angry. Lu Ziwen, you have to protect your own wife. I don't have time. Lu Ziwen frowned, his eyes a little cold, and Gu Zio found the shadow of the third master in him again. It seemed that it was true as Lu Ziwen said, there was never a third master and a third young master, they were just one person with many faces. Gu Zio came to see him with good intentions. He broke out in a cold sweat when he saw the tense situation with the surveillance staff that day. But who knew that coming to see Lu Ziwen frightened him again? After Gu Zio closed the door, he hurried up and bumped into Gu Si, who came in. Gu Si asked, "What's wrong?" "It's okay, Mom, have you settled with the old man?" "It's agreed," Gu Si said, "you can go and see her off." Gu Zio nodded, calmed down his emotions, and saw Chen Liangdong out. But Chen Liangdong was still absent-minded, and he could tell, "Why are you wandering in your mind all the time? There's one thing I can't figure out." "What a coincidence, there's one thing I can't figure out." The old man and the young man were both silent. After Gu Zio sent Chen Liangdong away, he hesitantly plucked the camellias in the yard, his face full of sorrow. Gu Si packed up the cups and asked Gu Zio, "What's wrong?" "Mom, the old man is suspicious of you. Maybe the National Security Bureau will monitor your mobile phone and your whereabouts. You have to be careful." This was a routine operation, and Gu Zio also reminded Gu Si. "Will he hack into the indoor camera?" Without further evidence, probably not. Gu Zio still knew this process relatively well. "Don't get caught. This matter involves you, and I won't be the one to follow up." "I understand." Gu Si rubbed his head. "How was your stay at Grandma's house?" "My grandma dotes on me too much. She prepares a lot of delicious food every day." "Mom, can you see if I have gained weight?" Gu Zio said, "I have gained 5 pounds after living here for 5 days. Chenfei has only gained 5 pounds recently. If you take me to train on weekends, will I become a little fat guy after the new year?" Gu Si looked at Ziyu carefully and saw that he was a little fatter, but Ziyu was much taller than his peers, with long arms and legs, and a slender figure. In the past, he was too thin, and he was not even noticeable at 5 pounds. "Then just eat until you're 80% full." "It's so difficult." "I eat until I'm full every meal." Gu Zio talked to her in a normal manner, but he was smart enough not to mention Lu Ziwen, nor did he ask her to see a doctor. After all, after watching the surveillance, Gu Zio knew that Gu Si's condition was getting worse and worse. He can only trust Lu Ziwen. "Mom, I'm leaving then." Gu Zio hugged her waist. "You must be well, I can't live without you." Gu Si was startled, and Gu Zio picked up his school bag and left Lanshan Villa. Gu Si stood on the second floor, looking at Xiao Ziyu's lonely back. Her heart hurt. This pain was like a vine wrapping around her nerves. Ziyu only had one friend, Ji Sun. After he came to this time and space, although he became cheerful and lively, and he went to study normally, he still only had Ji Huan as his friend. He was a special existence, and it seemed that he didn't want to be with anyone except his parents, Ji Huan, and the Zhang family. Everyone has a necessary emotional connection, but he seems to disappear at any time. He doesn't want to lose it, so he doesn't want to have it in the first place. He is a loner. Gu Zio could not survive in the previous life, could not find any hope, and could not survive in this life, because he was an existence outside the trajectory of life. If she and Lu Ziwen were gone, what would be the fate of Ziyu? Ziyu. She couldn't help calling her son's name. She once wanted to cure Lu Ziwen and Gu Ziyu, but she was the one who got the most serious illness. For the first time, Gu Si had the idea of recovering. The most terrifying thing about patients is not that they deny that they are sick, but that patients like Gu Si know that they are sick but do not want to treat her. She has clear logic and quick thinking. She simply just wants to live in her own illusion. Be willing to be sober. She went downstairs. Lu Ziwen had been waiting for Gu Ci. Ever since he almost shot Gu Ci to death and the two almost broke up, Gu Ci had not seen him again. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 308. Chapter 308 There passed. She had been hungry for 2 days without giving him anything to eat or drink. She seemed to have forgotten that her wronged husband was still locked up in the dark room. On the third day, she finally remembered that Lu Ziwen, who had been hungry for 2 days, looked at the 6 big men. Baizai fell into silence. This treatment is really not as good as that of Zhang Junlin. Ji Huan imprisoned Zhang Junlin and even made him a Buddha and jumped over the wall. Gu Ci plucked up the courage and opened the door. Lu Ziwen saw the light and looked up. It was obvious that he was locked up, but Gu Ci looked even more embarrassed than him. Lu Ziwen felt distressed, but his eyes were as calm as water. Xiao Ci, look at me, who do I look like? Gu Ci's heart trembled. Lu Ziwen was smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes, just like the third young master and the third master. The third master can only laugh when he plays the role of the third young master. He really acted. Is it so fun to lie to me? Gu Ci asked. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you with one shot, and then kill you with one shot? Let's die together. Lu Ziwen raised his chin, smiled like a monster, then relaxed, motioning her to look at the surveillance camera. Do you want Gu Ziu to see the scene where her mother killed her father and then committed suicide? He sat lazily on the ground with his back against the bed, but he didn't have the embarrassment of a prisoner. Instead, he felt as relaxed as walking in a courtyard. Xiao Ci, do you hate me? Gu Ci looked at him warily, feeling very confused. Who is he? Lu Ziwen said softly, Ziyu told me everything. My death in the last life caused your madness and Ziyu's tragedy. Everything was caused by me. There is one thing you may not know, Gu Chuiyun, she confessed to me when she was a sophomore in high school, but I refused. When you were fighting and having conflicts since childhood, I always favored Gu Chuiyun and scolded you in person. I didn't expect her to be sentimental because, you are underage and struggling in the Gu family. If I show it again. If she likes you even a little bit, Gu Chuiyun will hurt you even more. I didn't expect that she would notice it. So, I was the trigger for you to go to jail at that engagement party. If you didn't have me in your life, you wouldn't. With this disaster, even if you were bullied by Gu Chuiyun as a child, you still have the character to retaliate. Even if you suffer a loss, you can leave the Gu family when you reach 18 years of age. Gu Chuiyun will enjoy bullying you, but he will not send you away. Going to jail will destroy you. You are smart and have been hiding your stupidity. You will definitely be able to go to university in the college entrance examination, study your favorite major, graduate from the highest school, have a good future, and be able to leave the Gu family. Maybe you will meet someone you like on the university campus. Boys, from school uniforms to wedding dresses, you can give birth to a child as cute and beautiful as Ziyu, live a happy, and peaceful life. Ziyasai, all your misfortunes are caused by me. Do you hate me? Ordinary, maybe a financial executive, maybe a doctor. When she grows up, if Zhang Junlin sees her, he will definitely become suspicious and investigate her life experience. With Zhang Junlin's support, she will definitely live a good life. But he made Gu Ci suffer a lifetime of hardship. Gu Chuiyun has confessed his love to you. Lu Ziwen frowned. Gu Ci's emphasis was off-center, but he still nodded. I rejected her. Growing up, I didn't even see her clearly. Gu Ci chuckled. You know, when I was in middle school, why do I hate you? Because I always defend Gu Chuiyun. You misunderstood that I like him. You actually know everything. Gu Ci frowned, but you never explain. Why? Xiao Ci, I'm very busy, Lu Ziwen said calmly. As a racing driver, time is precious. I don't want to waste every minute and every second. I don't want to waste time on such boring things. Since my affairs are all boring, why will you marry me after I am released from prison? Gu Si asked about the previous life. Lu Ziwen, when you meet me again after 5 years in coma, it will almost be you. With your current mentality, why do you want to marry me? Lu Ziwen looked at Gu Si, as if looking at another person far away. He remembered Gu Si, who was in a trance in his last life and sought death several times. He put down everything and took good care of her, not daring to close his eyes for 24 hours. He thought about her preferences, helped her rebuild a paradise, and worked hard to make her feel a little attached to him. Gu Si today is very much like Gu Si in the last life when he was just released from prison. No. She got worse, and she was tortured by gains and losses. Xiao Ci, let me tell you a story. Lu Ziwen's voice softened a bit. Sit down and listen to me. Gu Si knew that Lu Ziwen had changed his strategy. He was too hard and soft, but no matter what story he told, he just wanted her to leave him. A long time ago, there was a small country isolated from the world. They lived and worked in peace and contentment. They were not disturbed by wars or worried about food. They lived in paradise from generation to generation. The citizens were not allowed to leave the enchantment, and outsiders were not allowed to enter. The small country was also an emperor system, but the imperial power is in the temple, and it is the enshrined in the temple who protects the people for generations. One day, a girl accidentally entered the barrier and met the priest in the temple. The priest came out. Out of pity, he hid the girl, and the two fell in love for a long time, but they committed a big taboo. The priest is the only servant in the temple. Anyone who is chosen to be a priest enters the temple at the age of 3 and serves as a priest for the rest of his life. The concubine asked for rain in times of drought and food in times of famine. The priest was the bridge between the priests and the people. After entering the temple, there was a curse. The priest had the lifespan of a demigod, but he had to be alone all his life. If he was moved by love, if a taboo is violated, it will definitely bring disaster to the people and it will be difficult to quell it. Gu Si was leaning on the sofa, feeling that this story was very familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere. She remembered that one year she accompanied Zhou Jinjin to Mount Bodhi. There was a fortune teller halfway up the mountain who seemed to have told her such a story. She wondered if the second half was exactly the same as what Lu Ziwen told her. The priest was moved and there was bound to be a natural disaster. There was hail in May of that year, which lasted for a whole month. The crops were frostbitten, and countless people were injured and killed by the hail. The emperor and his officials prayed outside the temple for 3 days and 3 days. At night, the punishment continued, rumors spread, natural disasters and man-made disasters occurred. There must be something wrong with the priest. The priest wanted to send the girl away from the first day of the natural disaster, but was eventually discovered by the royal secret guard due to delay. The girl had a strong personality and was being punished. In order not to implicate the priest, he committed suicide in front of the temple. It turned out that the girl was just a test given to the priest when he was bored. It was the priest's relationship. The priest hated the curse, the system, and the priest's ruthlessness, so he burned the with fire. Temple, opened the barrier, left his homeland, and wandered around the world like a lonely ghost. He searched for his sweetheart for 1 year and another, traveling all over China. He thought about the reincarnation of his sweetheart and could see him again. Hundreds of years have passed and there is still no trace. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 309. Chapter 309. I found the master. Lu Ziwen laughed at himself. 500 years later, he returned to the land of sadness. His hometown had long been torn apart and turned into a scorched earth. The rebuilt temple was in dilapidated condition. Without the offerings, the power of the priests became increasingly weak and gradually dissipated. The priest asked the priest where his sweetheart had gone. The priest told him the whereabouts of his sweetheart. The priest couldn't wait to find his sweetheart, but saw that his sweetheart had violated the law and was burned alive on the shelf. The priest was shocked and desperate. It turns out that everything is a curse from the priest. The reason why the priest's power is weakening is because the priest opened the barrier, the people fled, and no one worshipped him. Therefore, the priest hated the priest who destroyed everything, and cursed the priest again before his power dissipated. Gu Si remembered the story told by the fortune teller. It was exactly the same. Lu Ziwen looked at Gu Si and said softly, the priest was punished. Half of his soul was reincarnated. He was married to his sweetheart, but he could only live and die with her. In order to avoid the tragedy, the priest found another way to split his soul into two, and he would be born again at the same time. In his body, slowly merge with him, accept the fact, and separate. Gu Si leaned on the sofa with a pale face, her eyes filled with tears. So, there has never been a dual personality. Yes, Lu Ziwen said, Xiao Si, I don't give up and insist on trying. What will be the result? I am dead and you are crazy. This is an endless cycle. He shouldn't have appeared in her life in the first place, but half of his soul was involuntarily attracted to him, and by the time he could control it, it was too late. When he saw Gu Si outside the prison in his last life, his heart was cut with a knife. He couldn't help but watch Gu Si suffer and be trampled in the dust. Over the years, he had never crossed the threshold of thunder, but his love for Gu Si has never dissipated. So, he wanted to give it a try, and he was fully prepared, but he didn't expect that the result would be more cruel than separation between life and death. His approach to Gu Si will only make her unfortunate. This is the most vicious curse before the priest dissipates. He brought Gu Si back to the age of 18, hoping to start her life over again, but he didn't know what went wrong. He lost his memory and Xiu also traveled through time. Lu Ziwen, in order to make me give up, I have made it difficult for you to make up such a story. You are not only good at racing and finance, but you can also be a screenwriter. I underestimated you. Gu Si's voice became a few degrees colder. If you fall in love with her, you will be separated for life or death. The story is so beautifully written. Lu Ziwen said softly, Xiao Si, if you believe the story, don't be too stubborn. I like you very much. I have liked you since I was a child. How could I not like our destined love? But you and I really can't be together. It will bring you misfortune. His attitude sounded like he was telling a story. It was not a very heavy story that happened between them. How could Gu Si believe it? He just felt that Lu Ziwen had made up stories at all costs in order to get out of trouble. The story is still full of loopholes. There is no such thing as a paradise in this world. There is no such thing as a priest. What a priest! Lu Ziwen, even if your story is true, have you asked me? Gu Si stood in front of him and asked him condescendingly, do I want the love of a moth flying into a flame, or a life as plain as water? How can you decide for me? Lu Ziwen's eyes darkened, he looked up at her, and wiped away the smile on his face. Xiao Si, I never asked you, I will not give up and insist on entangled. You also see the outcome clearly. Now that I have to do it again, choose a new path. Are you going to continue to entangle me in the next life? Gu Si's eyes turned red. Since this has been the case in all lifetimes, why do you want to be reincarnated and why do you want to get close to me? Since you are close and provoke me, why do you give up halfway? Lu Ziwen took her hand and pulled it down. Gu Ci knelt in front of him. Lu Ziwen held her wrist firmly. Gu Ci, please wake up and get entangled with me. You will only die. You are dead, what should I do with Ziyu? The word Guziu was like a knife piercing her heart. Lu Ziwen's eyes were red, and he no longer had the carelessness when telling stories. If you and I can have a happy ending, how can I? How could I refuse you? I don't believe it. Gu Ci pushed him away with a splitting headache. You are just making up stories, I don't believe a word of it. Gu Ci walked away with a puff of his sleeves. Lu Ziwen closed his eyes. He failed again. It's neither hard nor soft. Lu Ziwen rubbed his brows and asked, why don't you believe me? Gu Ziu looked at the surveillance camera and was heartbroken. Why did the talks break down again? Dad, you are really useless. But what they said, Mom looked very scared. Dad can't do anything bad again, right? Gu Ci leaned against the bedroom door, her heart pounding. She remembered the fortune teller she and Zhou Jinjin met that year. He was an old man with a grey beard. Zhou Jinjin was looking for marriage, and he was also counting on marriage. The fortune teller said that her right fate had not come yet, and she did not want to calculate her marriage, so Zhou Jinjin insisted on asking her to calculate her destiny. The fortune teller looked at her horoscope and suddenly told a story. This story was exactly the same as Lu Ziwen's, except that it was different from Lu Ziwen's. Lu Ziwen's story is just missing a few details. No. It's just a coincidence. There are no gods, demons, or monsters in this world. It's unbelievable. Lu Ziwen just wanted to trick her into giving up and seeing a doctor. She couldn't believe his lies. When Gu Ci thought about the story Lu Ziwen told, she couldn't accept it that he and she were destined to be separated forever. Gu Ci covered her head in pain. Don't believe him, he's lying, Gu Ci, he's lying. Gu Ci called Zhou Jinjin. Jinjin, we went to Bodhi Mountain in our freshman year of high school and met a fortune teller halfway up the mountain. Do you remember? Of course I remember. At that time, she said that Lu Shixiu was not the right match for me and that I got married very late. Zhou Jinjin was wearing a heavy costume and was reading the script. What's wrong? He told me a story, do you remember it? I remember. After the story was told, you cried all the way. You have been hard-hearted since you were a child, but you didn't expect that you could be moved by stories. You are quite emotional. Do you remember what the story says? Zhou Jinjin felt that Gu Ci's tone was a bit weird, but he didn't say anything more. He retold the story. It was really the same as what Lu Ziwen said, with only a few details. Gu Ci felt a chill go down her spine. Why is this such a coincidence? Is it really a coincidence? Porcelain treasure, what's wrong? Nothing, I just suddenly wanted to tell my fortune, so I remembered this. Gu Ci chatted with Zhou Jinjin for a while longer. Zhou Jinjin also noticed that she was absent-minded and hung up the phone without saying a few words. Gu Ci was disturbed by the story Lu Ziwen told. The phone rang, and Little Cherry called, Gu Ci, I found the owner. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 310. Chapter 310 The Clever Little Cherry. Gu Ci's mind was shaken, and all her romance and sorrow disappeared. She went from being in love to a calm state in a matter of seconds. Where are you? I have been guarding them in a residential house for 2 days, and I can basically confirm that the owner is with Ji Sun. This phone number is not Gu Ci's mobile phone, it is a number that is free of surveillance and tracking. Gu Ci is not afraid of national security surveillance. How did you find your brother? There is a secret code between the master and I, only we know it. I guess he left a mark on the roadside when he took Ji Sun out for medical treatment. I searched every house within a 2-kilometer radius of the mark. The master would come from time to time at night. The ground uses light to reflect a diamond-shaped mark on the building opposite, which is my code name. Only Qinhuan knows this code name. How did brother know that you went to Paris? Gu Xi frowned. She told Zhang Junlin that Qinhuan went to Paris, and Ji Huan was also in the car at that time. Zhang Junlin kept the story short, and Gu Xi did not reveal any information. Qinhuan chuckled, this is a tacit understanding between the master and I. There is a difficult problem now. I can't contact him. The terrain in the residential building is not complicated, but if you come to the door rashly, it will definitely attract Ji Sun's attention. The master will also, if he doesn't know I'm nearby, I can't send him a message. If he calls, remind him that I'm waiting for the opportunity and will find a way to let him know that I'm nearby. Another way is to kill Ji Sun. I asked the owner of the small clinic and found out that Ji Xian was still seriously injured. Don't act rashly. Gu Xi could feel Qinhuan's malice towards Ji Sun, and was really ready to kill Ji Sun. It was not difficult to understand from Qinhuan's point of view. Ji Sun was seriously injured, and my brother took him to see a doctor. He doesn't want Ji Xian to die. By the way, can you play the violin? I know it, but I'm not proficient. Qinhuan raised his eyebrows. In front of people who don't understand music, I can barely show off, but it's flashy. My brother is very proficient in music, and he can also send messages through music. If I send you a piece of music, if he can hear it, he will know that you are nearby. Don't be too complicated, the level is limited. New. After Gu Xi adapted a piece of music and blended it into the music, she suddenly thought of a better way. She tried playing it once and recorded it and sent it to Qinhuan. The only drawback of the recorded music is that the sound is not loud enough. If a loudspeaker will appear abrupt and eye-catching in the snow. You can learn from the music I recorded. Okay. I'll give you a list. If there's an emergency, you contact them. If you can handle it, don't alert anyone. This list was left to me by my brother. But now, in the Jidao, there are people and ghosts. We don't know. Gu Xi said, my brother's safety is the top priority in everything, so don't contact them unless it's an emergency. If you contact them and the information is leaked, at least I can pinpoint the culprit. The most difficult thing now is that we don't know who is leaking the news about the Yakuza and wants to kill Zhang Junlin. I understand, Qinhuan said, don't worry, I know what's going on. After Gu Xi hung up the phone, she opened the internal network of the Jidao Dark Network. In fact, she had locked 6 people, but she didn't know who they were. The only thing she knew was that they were also a knife for others. This person she hid even deeper than her brother, manipulated everything behind the scenes, and even sold information to Black Hawk. Fortunately, she was not exposed. This is the only good news. After wrongly received a steady stream of intelligence, she backhandedly caused great trouble for the search and rescue team of the Jidao Dark Network, causing internal and external troubles. She wanted to rescue her brother as soon as possible. In Paris, Qinhuan was only 500 meters away from Ji Sun's safe house and lived in a B&B. She bought a violin and tried to play the music given by Gu Xi. This piece of music is not difficult at all for Gu Xi, just the level of practice, but for Qinhuan, it is very painful to practice. It is a bit of a waste of time. Qinhuan ponders, how can she use the fastest news to give Zhang? What if Junlin conveys the news without alerting Ji Sun or the people on the Jidao Dark Network? Both groups of people in the Jidao Dark Network have informants who are very good at monitoring and tracking. If Zhang Junlin's address is leaked, it will bring him death. She used a telescope to watch the little boy next door taking his sister out to buy things, and she had an idea and came up with a solution. The little boy took his sister to buy ingredients in the supermarket. Zhang Junlin and Ji Xian were unable to go out. They gave the little boy a sum of money and asked him to help buy things. This reduced the necessary time for Zhang Junlin and Ji Xian to go out, and there was no one will doubt the child. In the supermarket, Wan deliberately bumped into the little girl. The little boy was picking up oranges in the fruit section and did not pay attention to his sister. Wan squatted down and apologized angrily, "Little sister, I'm sorry, my sister bumped into you. Does it hurt?" Wan speaks French very well, and is best at playing the innocent and gentle little white flower. The little sister was a little hurt from the bump, so she shook her head obediently, "It doesn't hurt." "I'm sorry." Wan handed her the pink and purple doll in his arms, "It's a gift from my sister. Click here and there will be violin music. Does it sound good?" Little girls of this age are unable to resist dolls. My younger sister dared not pick them up. My brother said you can't ask for things from strangers. My sister doesn't like dolls, but she accidentally got them dirty, so I had to buy them and give them to you as an apology. Do you like them? The younger sister blushed, "I like it." What little girl wouldn't like a doll wearing a pink princess dress? "That's for you." Wan secretly approached the little girl and said, "Keep listening to it, my sister also likes this song." "Okay," the little girl smiled sweetly. After Wan walked for a while, he turned back to give her a heartfelt greeting. Brother took the fruit, frowned and asked, "Where did the doll come from?" "A sister gave it to me." The little girl turned back to look for Wan, but no one could be seen. "My sister bumped into me, so she bought a doll for me, brother. I like it very much. Can you keep it?" The elder brother checked the doll and found that there was nothing wrong with it. "Take it and play with it." The little girl happily hugged the doll and listened to the violin music. She was very happy. After paying the bill, she followed her brother as she skipped home, playing with the doll all the way. Wan stood in the wind and snow and saw the little girl playing with dolls. She smiled. A little girl of this age would eagerly play with a new toy. Before she went upstairs, she was still playing songs. Wan finally relieved. The little boy knocked on the door. Zhang Junlin opened the door and took the vegetables and fruits amidst the sound of music. The little boy was taciturn and wanted to leave after handing over the fruits and vegetables. Zhang Junlin suddenly said, "I'm sorry to trouble you on this snowy day. Give you some pocket money." "No need." The little boy rejected his proposal. End of this chapter.